The Hospital of Shadows, Captives Free podcast. What if I told you that a young doctor walked into a hospital and immediately felt something was wrong? Not medically wrong, spiritually wrong. A darkness she couldn't explain, a heaviness hanging over the building like a storm cloud nobody else seemed to notice. Most people would dismiss that feeling, shake it off, blame the stress, the long hours, the fluorescent lighting. But according to Rebecca, that feeling was a warning, because what she would discover inside that hospital would lead her into a story involving alleged kidnappings, occult rituals, unexplained deaths, claims of satanic infiltration, and a battle she believed nearly cost her life. Tonight, we're stepping into one of the strangest testimonies I've ever encountered. This is the story of Rebecca, and this is the Hospital of Shadows. The year was the beginning of Rebecca's medical career. She had just graduated medical school. She was beginning her internship in internal medicine at a place called Memorial Hospital. For most young doctors, this would have been a dream come true. Years of sacrifice, years of study, years of sleepless nights. Now she was finally here. But from the moment she crossed the threshold of the hospital, she felt something she couldn't explain. Not fear, not anxiety, something darker. She later described it as a brooding presence, like something watching, waiting. The kind of feeling you get when you walk into an empty house and immediately know you're not comfortable there. You don't know why, you just know. Rebecca couldn't shake it. And within weeks, she would encounter something that would haunt her for years. It was around 2 a.m. when the call came into the emergency room. A male patient, 30-something, critical condition. The staff rushed him inside. Rebecca took one look at him and froze. She had worked emergency rooms for years. She had seen shootings, car wrecks, heart attacks, trauma, but she claimed she had never seen anything like this. The man had been tortured. His body was covered in injuries, burns, stab wounds, whip marks, sections of skin removed. And then Rebecca noticed something even more disturbing. The man's palms. Both hands had holes driven through them, as if spikes had been hammered straight through. The injuries looked disturbingly familiar, like something out of the New Testament, like a crucifixion. The man survived, at least for now. But Rebecca wouldn't learn the full story until months later, and when she did, the mystery only deepened. The patient eventually recovered enough to talk. His name was Bob, a pastor, and according to Bob, he had been ministering to people involved in Satanism, not dabbling, not teenagers playing with Ouija boards, people deeply involved in occult practices. He claimed he had been helping some of them leave that world and become Christians. And then he disappeared. Bob said he had been kidnapped, taken to a gathering, brought before a crowd, placed on a stage, tortured. And according to his testimony, his captors were attempting to nail him to a cross when something interrupted them. Police arrived. Bob survived. And Rebecca found herself asking a question that would become the central mystery of her time at Memorial Hospital. If this was true, how many other people connected to this world were still out there? At first, Rebecca tried to focus on medicine, facts, lab work, charts, evidence. But strange things kept happening. Patients would stabilize, then suddenly die. No warning. No obvious cause, no clear explanation. She reviewed case after case, autopsy after autopsy, and according to her account, the answers didn't add up. Then came another pattern, one that disturbed her even more. Patients began describing things they were seeing, people in their rooms, dark figures, terrifying presences, shadows. Rebecca started asking questions. One patient, then another, then another. And according to her testimony, many of them gave the same answer. They claimed they were seeing demons. Then came the woman who changed everything. Her name was Pearl, an elderly Christian woman, strong in her faith, not someone prone to panic, not someone known for wild stories. One morning, Rebecca entered her room and found Pearl crying. Not uncomfortable, not confused, terrified. Rebecca asked what was wrong, and Pearl told her something that sounded impossible. She said a nurse had been visiting her room at night. The nurse told her there was no reason to keep fighting, that death wasn't something to fear, that she would soon move into another life, a beautiful life. Then Pearl made another claim. She said the nurse placed her hands on her and began speaking words she didn't understand, an unfamiliar language, an incantation. Pearl believed the woman was performing some kind of ritual, and she believed that if the nurse came back, she would die. Rebecca couldn't ignore what she'd heard, so she did something unusual. She stayed. That night, she sat beside Pearl's bed, watching, waiting, expecting nothing, until something happened. Rebecca later claimed she felt an overwhelming force enter the room. Pressure, oppression, weakness, like something invisible was trying to crush her. She said it felt as though her strength was draining out of her body, as though some unseen force was trying to suffocate her spirit. Pearl felt it too. The two women joined hands and prayed, hour after hour, waiting for morning. Morning eventually came. Pearl survived. But the mystery was only beginning, because soon someone would come forward with information that would change everything. Another nurse approached Rebecca. We'll call her Jean. And Jean claimed she knew exactly who Pearl had been talking about. The nurse's name was Helen, and according to Jean, Helen was involved in occult practices. Jean alleged that Helen had once tried to recruit her, train her, initiate her. She claimed Helen spoke of spirits, mediumship, hidden powers, and she alleged that critically ill patients often deteriorated after encounters with her. Now let's pause here, because regardless of what anyone believes about the supernatural aspects of this story, this is the moment where the narrative shifts. The isolated incidents suddenly become connected, at least in Rebecca's mind. The tortured pastor, the reports of demons, the mysterious deaths, Pearl's testimony, Helen, the alleged occult network operating nearby. All of it suddenly seemed connected. Then the story takes its darkest turn, because Rebecca becomes the next victim, at least according to her account. As time passed, her health began to collapse. Her neuromuscular disease worsened dramatically. Doctors examined her. Specialists evaluated her. Nothing worked. Eventually, she was told she might be dying. She left the hospital, returned home, and prepared herself for the possibility that her life was ending. Then her pastor arrived. What he told her would change the direction of the entire story. He said he believed she wasn't simply sick. He believed she was under attack. That powerful occult practitioners were targeting her, that the battle she'd been fighting in the hospital had now become personal. Hundreds of people began praying, church members, pastors, elders, friends, day after day, night after night. Rebecca later described reaching a breaking point, a moment when she decided she would no longer accept what was happening. She prayed. She resisted, she fought, and according to her testimony, something changed. Her strength began returning, her condition improved. She recovered. Doctors had expected her to decline. Instead, she got better, and eventually, she returned to Memorial Hospital. Final thought. Was Memorial Hospital truly a battlefield between unseen spiritual forces? Were the stories simply coincidences, woven together through a particular theological lens? Was there another explanation? That's for you to decide. But one thing is certain. Rebecca walked into that hospital sensing a darkness she couldn't explain. And by the time she left, she believed she had encountered something far more terrifying than disease. She believed she had stepped into a war nobody else could see. And according to her story, the battle was far from over. Because waiting in the next chapter is a woman named Elaine, the alleged witch Rebecca believed had orchestrated the attack against her. And if Rebecca's account is true, the most dangerous chapter of this story hasn't happened yet. Anyway, time for this bird to fly. Stay vigilant, and I'll see you in the next one.